one thing that I can promise our fans is that there will not be a player that's available that we won't study, that we won't look at and see if it can help the team. Sometimes those opportunities work, and you're able to do that, and sometimes they don't.
There we go. What's
There
up,
you go.
everybody? How we doing? Howie's kind of normal, right? But the fact that Howie's letting everybody know if there's any player available, trade, draft, acquisition, free agency coming up, which is,
Sure.
like a week and a half away, something like that. Crazy how fast that's happened. How are you going to look into it? Doesn't necessarily mean that the player is going to be in Philly, but insert, whoever you want, Myles Garrett, Harold Landry, whoever. We'll talk about those. But we see everybody in the chat. Shout out to you guys. Thomas, how we doing? A little earlier Wednesday link on a Thursday.
I'm doing good. Yeah, listen, we're getting very close to, obviously, real combine drills starting to take place as the NFL Combine, the week of, is obviously here. We actually get drills happening throughout the course of the next couple of days. All the meetings are continuing to go down. Interesting names that Philadelphia is starting to go ahead and meet with, but all eyes are on NFL free agency and the start of the new league year on March, was it 12th, 13th, whatever the day is in a couple of weeks. And I think a lot's going to happen. I think we're going to get closer and closer to a Zack Baun deal. We're going to see a couple of Eagles leave, and Milton Williams and Josh Sweat, as we're going to talk about. And you mentioned Myles Garrett, Josh. There was some, you call it breaking news over the course of the past 30 minutes saying that Myles Garrett has refused any sort of contract talks with the Cleveland Browns, saying that he is not interested in coming back for any price to Cleveland, which is going to further force his hand and maybe bring the price down a little bit because teams know they have no choice but to trade Myles Garrett. So a lot is going on right now. Hope you're doing well and pumped, to be here on a little Thursday afternoon show.
There we go. Yes. For people that are wondering too, obviously not the normal Wednesday link time, but we did not have the Wednesday link. So scheduling conflicts, all the other stuff, usually it is, but
Sure.
Occasionally we got some family stuff for me, or just, it's all sorts of stuff over the offseason because it's not as planned and regular. And Thomas, I talked about this a number of times on the show, but also offline. It's like there's kind of a mixed bag because during the season you have a little bit better of an understanding or expectation of, okay, there's going to be press conferences this day. We're going to hear from the coordinators, the players are going to practice, get the game prep, all the other stuff. Offseason is like no holds barred, just whatever goes. And so especially as we're leading up to the free agent time period, all this news, all these rumors, everything else, people see it on your screen there. There's one of the many tweets that came out, but that is the Myles Garrett not open to the contract extension talks. You find it a little bit comical, I suppose, that Andrew Berry, he's got to go up there and say what he did. So I understand that. The Browns GM, for anyone who did not see, you got to go up there and face the music, and that you're going to get asked that by the media of, hey, what about Myles Garrett? But when he's made it so blatantly obvious, like, I really don't want to be there, I don't necessarily know that the best thing for the Cleveland Browns, even though they argue that, and Andrew Berry said it, is for Myles Garrett to be on this team because he's not open to that extension and, at least get what you can for him now. Cleveland is an absolute mess as it is, but it feels like even if he's not going to go to Philly, and we can get into this if we want to, it does not feel very likely that he's going to remain with Cleveland. Let's just say that. I think a lot of people are understanding, but especially the way this thing's transpiring does not feel very likely.
Doesn't feel like very, very likely at all. He's definitely leaving. I mean, it gets to a point in a lot of these superstar NFL careers, especially it feels like defensive players, that the loyalty really starts to die when you've poured your entire career into one organization that's never really won anything. Like what? They probably won one, maybe two playoff games throughout Myles Garrett's entire tenure, and the guy's 29 years old. So he's at the point where he wants to sign with a contender. And I do think that is going to help Philadelphia in their ability to sign him, because as you look at the other suitors, right, there are plenty of teams that could throw a lot of money and a lot of draft picks to Cleveland's way, right? I mean, you could talk about the New England Patriots potentially being a playoff caliber team this coming season because they're going to draft Travis Hunter, and we all like their quarterback in year 2. They also have a bunch of money, but are they going to go win a Super Bowl in 2025? The answer is obviously no. Washington is a very serious threat. The Commanders will make a huge run. We almost guarantee that. It seems like the reporting is out there. They want to make a run at Myles Garrett. But if you're Myles Garrett, are you sure the Commanders are ready to win a Super Bowl in 2025? And that's not disrespecting any part of the Washington Commanders. They're a great football team. but it's the exact same thing that we saw with the Houston Texans this past year. C.J. Stroud going into year 2 was supposed to be the guy, Josh. I mean, he was like the sexy kind of pick there. Obviously, Lamar and Josh Allen were also there to dethrone Patrick Mahomes, but it was like, wow, they got Stephon Diggs. They went out and got Joe Mixon. They got all these edge rushers, and Houston Texans took a massive step back. They won a playoff game, but still were nowhere near the juggernaut team, the big threat everyone thought they would be in the AFC. And if I'm Myles Garrett, I would consider that with the Washington Commanders. You know Philadelphia is ready to run it back again. Even when they lose Josh Sweat and Milton Williams, and we talk about Zack Baun, we think he's going to stay, they're ready to run it back. And if you really want to go play in meaningful NFC Championship games and Super Bowls, Philadelphia might be one of the few destinations, A, that can afford you, and B, also get you to where you want to go.
That's ultimately what it comes down to, is like, how much do you want to win? You make valid case, valid point. Everyone understands, hey, Commanders got probably about the best turnaround as you possibly can from a public image from like 1 year to the next. People that watched or saw the NFLPA report cards and everything else for teams that go out there. But, you go from that standpoint, sure, hey, there's lots of opportunity. But look at the NFC, and we saw this obviously with the Super Bowl run, but you see this team here. If Myles Garrett is willing to or wanting to win a championship, and depending on, how much he's willing to structure a contract, maybe take a little bit of a pay, I don't know, just slightly less than what he could get market value there, it could certainly help his opportunity. But at the same time, there's definitely, I think, teams out there that would be willing to pay him exactly what he's asking and still make the move. And as you're talking about there, Commanders, do the Eagles, I know the report from Jeremy Fowler a couple days ago, or like the Eagles might be a team to kind of snake the Commanders if they feel like they're getting close to acquiring Myles Garrett. I don't necessarily discredit. I mean, Jeremy Fowler's great reporting. I don't discredit that he's hearing it. But to me, I'm going, I don't necessarily know if it's like a full blown, because the Commanders are going to get him now we're going to go all in and sell resources. Like, to me, it's more of those, and I think a lot of us understand, is like, just at least bump the price up. Are you going to fully go for him? I think that has to already be made up now. Like the mind has to be made up. If there is an opportunity and the Browns are legit going to trade him at some point, if Andrew Berry folds and says, all right, we can't do anything here, so we're going to trade him, your mind has to be made up now. Are you going to do it or not? Otherwise, let's just go ahead and go future point, take it with the youth and move in that direction, which is where I feel like they're going. And Howie's not going to completely put all of his cards on the table, but I can't envision that. So for the 52% of people, based on the poll that I put up there, is Myles Garrett returning to Philly or not? I'm with the 52%, but it's very split, obviously.
It's very split. Now, okay, there is obviously a scenario where Philadelphia gets outbid or truly doesn't want Myles Garrett. Maybe they're wanting to drive the price up, as many people have talked about, but I do think they're making phone calls and they're going to try. Howie Roseman fully understands what he has in the Eagles' defensive line, and he realizes that if you take a premier edge rusher and add him to a defensive line that already features who we both consider, you especially, soon to be one of the premier edge rushers in the National Football League in Nolan Smith, who I think is one of the premier year 2 potential guys to break out this coming season in Jalen Hunt, along with Moro Jomo, we both absolutely love going into year 3, plus Jalen Carter, who can probably win Defensive Player of the Year next year, or at least will be considered the greatest defensive player in the entire National Football League. Adding in another edge rusher makes this defense unstoppable. It really does. I don't know how you defend it. And whether it's Myles Garrett, whether it's trading up in the draft and getting somebody they believe can be a future superstar, or, talked about on my show, dropped a couple hours ago, Harold Landry, the Tennessee Titans, I do think Howie Roseman's going to pull the trigger on one of these guys. And it's not going to surprise me whether it's Garrett, Landry, a draft pick, or elsewhere. I do feel like he's going to try and make an upgrade, though.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you there. I do think that he loves the defensive line. He loves the trenches, really, to begin with, on both sides, offensive line, defensive line. But there's too much there that he said it's his how did he phrase it in the press conference? I'm trying to remember exactly his wording. It was basically like talking about
it's never
something
gonna
he can't help himself, So that sense of he's going to look at it. We played it here in the open clip of him talking about there's anybody available they're going to go look at. I don't think, and I'll just go ahead and put this out. I see people in the comments. We were going to get to this eventually, but I'll just go ahead and go here now. I don't think that Josh Sweat and Milton Williams are returning.
Nope.
Now, there are people that would believe this because, you never know. You see these posts all the time, and who knows. But Josh Sweat post based on Jeremy Fowler's report, and somebody put this on Instagram, and I'm scrolling down here to Sweaty's comment. There you go. So Sweaty's comment back to it saying Josh Sweat expected to part ways with the Eagles this offseason. All he does is comment 3 question marks. Now, people are going to take that and run
Interesting.
with it and say, hey, this is Josh Sweat for sure not going.
Interesting.
It doesn't mean one way or the other. Now, I can understand, like, hey, it's not impossible because we had reports of he's going to move on last offseason and then he comes back and restructure and everything. So similarly to these other guys, like a Myles Garrett, for example, who says, no, I want to win a championship. You know what? Hey, Sweaty may be in that same scenario. He may say, you know what? I'm willing to take a little bit of a discount and make things work because I want to be in Philly long term. It's not impossible.
It's not impossible.
For him to say that or to put that out there
Sure.
on social media, all right, that's one thing. But at the same time, there's a very much feel towards, as a lot of people are getting these reports, and Jeremy Fowler, again, one of the ones that has been accurate for a number of those and following the team closely. I think it's more so the feel of what he's getting from other teams and what they're going to be willing to offer Sweat in free agency. So unless this is totally, again, Sweat take a discount deal, I don't know. But it is, at least nonetheless, because we're in the offseason and there's just random things that pop up and rumors.
Hey.
Who knows what to say about the 3 question marks from Josh Sweat?
I will say I'm very interested in Harold Landry because as I look at Josh Sweat, I had this thought a couple days ago. And I like Josh Sweat. If Josh Sweat wanted to do exactly what you just said, take a discount, come back to Philadelphia, I think every Eagle fan would take him. But we've also seen Josh Sweat in Philadelphia his entire career, and he's never really been a double-digit sack guy. I think 1 year he had 10.5, which was, I think, 2 years ago. He's hovered around 6, 7, 8, 9. That's kind of his bread and butter, which is still fantastic. If you have a 9-sack guy here and a 9-sack guy over there, and Jalen Carter's getting 6 or 7 in the middle, like, come on, this is all great. But I wonder if the Eagles, and especially Vic Fangio, watched Josh Sweat and went, he's really good. He obviously plays well in the scheme, and a lot of guys play great next to Jalen Carter. But what if we actually just upgraded a little bit? And I kind of view Harold Landry as an upgrade. Talk about a guy who's played on a much worse football team. I know he's had some pretty good defensive players, D tackles next to him throughout his career, but Tennessee's lost 35 games in the past 3 seasons combined. Like he's not playing on world-beating defenses, yet he's still getting double-digit sacks every single year. And I think right at that age where he's ready for one final decent-sized contract. And I wonder if the Eagles view Josh Sweat as like, what if we get 10% better than Josh Sweat? How much better does that make the defensive line overall? And if they truly believe that, which we don't know, but just a guess, then they could go out and pull the trigger on a Harold Landry for like a 3rd or a 4th round draft pick, make the upgrade, pay him very similar, maybe a little more, a little less here and there. And if they're 10% better, how much better does that make the defense overall? I think it makes them pretty darn good. So the beauty of this whole thing, Josh, is we have had offseason in Philadelphia where it's like, we need to plug this little hole. We also really need to get a linebacker. Well, we need a right tackle. There have been plenty of off seasons, almost every single year in Philadelphia, where you have a ton of needs. Philadelphia has no needs. Philadelphia could lose, literally. Think about this. They could lose everybody but Zack Baun, because you and I both think Zack Baun is pretty irreplaceable, even though you could argue in a scheme, you bring back Oren Burks, you have a healthy Nakobe Dean, and maybe it'd be okay. But you and I would both say, we got to keep Zack Baun. They could lose everybody but Zack Baun. And they are still the best roster in the NFC. And it's not that close at all.
Yeah.
I mean, literally. Because even if you lost McKai Becton, who you and I want to bring back, Tyler Steen can plug and play right in there. He did it a lot of games this past season. That's the beauty of where we're at. Garrett, you talk about Landry, Josh Sweat, all these people it's icing on the cake to the end of a season that resulted in a Super Bowl, and yet we can still just reload a little more and go try and get another one in 2025.
Yep, and there's still the draft coming up too, and sometimes people say...
I forget that, by the way. Like, yeah. I forget that we could go get 2 more starters in round 1 and 2, and it's like, holy cow. Yeah,
because
I forget that.
Because, and again, I think other people understand this as well. I'm going to get to the super chats too. We see you guys. Appreciate that here in just a second. But yeah, it doesn't always happen. You don't always draft a guy in 1st round, 2nd round, and 3rd round, even have them starting or playing very significant snaps in a Super Bowl, let alone, just playoffs or late in the season. But that's what this team has done, and the way that they've been able to help players improve, the positional coaches, the development, it's been night and day difference. So, yeah, I'm with you. It's the same thing for the roster. I'm not trying to get like too far ahead of myself here, but it's like this team is a different feeling, a different vibe, and it's good. Let's just say this. It's good what happened to the Eagles in 2018. What happened after winning the Super Bowl is a really good thing because Howie Roseman has spoken about it. He understands what you're going to go through. He understands his shortfalls and the things that he did or did not do in that instance where it's like, you know what? Hey, now you come off of a Super Bowl win. You've been here. You've done that. And you have youth on the roster and a defense that's the youngest in the league, number 1 defense in the league. You're going to lose some pieces, sure. But again, as you're talking about, Thomas, there's ways to reload, whether it is the free agency, whether it's guys who want to win a championship because they see this is the point, right? Like you look at other dynasties, and again, I know we got a ways to go. We just don't get ahead of ourselves here. But still, you look at squads like that and you go, hey, there's a reason that the Chiefs had the long run that they had. There's a reason the Patriots had the multiple runs that they had. There's a certain point where you attract a veteran type player who has made all the money that they need or made plenty and said, you know what, I'll short, a little bit and say, I'll just take some on the advertising deals. I want some for my legacy. We got Saquon here. Not that he really had to take a discount. The Giants were just idiotic for that one. So, but it's still a much bigger impact. And so I think you're right on. We'll see which the obvious moves that they do. But Anthony here, before I get to the other first super chats, reminder, I was trying to think of the exact comment or the exact post, but he said, last offseason, Josh Sweat said goodbye to Eagles fans on social media. We saw how that ended.
I forgot about that. That's right. He was like
back,
for sure gone.
Yeah, we were like that was a given. You see him make the case. You're like, well, he will for sure not be here. And then, I don't know, the Hassan Reddick situation, that might have changed things there. But if it works out in the same sense of last year, then maybe Sweaty's gone. So even though he's questioning if he is actually gone. All right, get to these super chats. Appreciate you guys. Fredo with the 2 said he's coming to us, y'all. This was earlier. I apologize, but he was talking about Myles Garrett. There's 58% of people now on the poll saying no. So I'm with the no.
Wow. Wow. I think the fear, again, quick thought. I think the fear is the price. I don't know if the price is going to be as big as people think. I think if I asked even you, Josh, and I would consider you're more of a skeptic on the Myles Garrett thing and you don't want to overpay.
For sure.
You would do 32 overall plus, let's say, the 2026 third for Myles Garrett right now, right? Just that.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I think a lot of people think the sticker price is 2 first plus something else. 2 first and a second, 2 first and a third. Maybe, but I don't think it's a guarantee. I think 1 first for sure, because these sort of trades, when people demand to get out of there, like we saw Myles Garrett do today, it tends to drive the price down a little bit more. And for a 29-year-old edge rusher, he's not 24, a 1 first and a third would be a lot more easy to swallow than 2 first. I think most Eagle fans are worried about it being 2.
Yeah, I would absolutely, because honestly, especially if you look at that, you say, hey, it's going to be, and it's all hypotheticals, but if it's a 32 this year and a third round next year, I mean, that's basically just this year's first, which is almost like a second because, you're all the way back to 32 because you're going to get comp picks, right? Because we have Milton Williams and Josh Sweat who have been projected, we'll see, but like a third and a fourth. So in that instance, you go, okay, well, we lose one, but you replenish with the Myles Garrett there. So, I mean, I would absolutely sign up for that. That'll be the curious part. It really comes down to, is Washington that team that overpays? Is New England, even though they're not the contender, does Myles Garrett want to go there and all that? But we'll see. It might be later, as people have brought up on a number of occasions. It does make sense financially for Cleveland to trade him as a post-June 1st. Yeah. So, it might drag out a little bit more, and then that becomes a little bit more of an issue of two, like, okay, but what about draft picks and compensation? Maybe it's later years. You mess with that a little bit, but at some point, if Cleveland's not getting, like, if the deals continue to just kind of fall a little bit worse and worse and worse because they're holding on to him and not taking advantage, I mean, they might have to just pull the trigger and say, you know what, it's going to be a loss either way. They've done so many things that have been negative in terms of signings and Deshaun Watson and all the guaranteed money and the cap hell that they're in. Yeah. They might just have to punt it and say, forget about it. We'll take whatever we can. And I don't know. I'm still, percentage wise, 10%, 15% of a Myles Garrett. I think I've learned from the Saquon Barkley, as Anthony has, where he was saying 0.0%, but it still feels unlikely. Dante with a
Great
20
point.
bomb. Appreciate that.
There you go.
From St. Croix. Let's go.
Cool.
Let's see. Do you think do you think we have a kicker problem? Should the Eagles seek a backup?
I mean, we talked about this. I think Jake helped his chances of obviously staying on the roster with the playoff performance, the Super Bowl performance. He was pretty good in that one. I have a feeling that they're going to gauge it as the offseason rolls on. I'm sure as soon as you go through OTAs, especially whenever you get to training camp, they'll see how it goes. If he kicks really well in training camp, he obviously said he had some sort of injury throughout the course of the 2024 season. Maybe that corrects itself and he's fine. If he does kick poorly early on, they'll bring in competition, but I don't think they will, Josh. I was very much before the Super Bowl, right before the playoffs, thinking they would bring in competition. After the playoffs, and after he said he was injured, I'm kind of like, maybe it's more so the injury than obviously he's just a bad kicker all of a sudden.
Yeah. I will say this. I think that I'm going to go with the mindset that we do see competition. Now, is it legit
Okay.
competition? I don't know. But my thought is that sometimes there's PR moves, and sometimes to
Fair.
appease the masses, they will say, oh, we know what was being said about Jake Elliott for a long time. And there were struggles.
Yeah.
There were definite struggles. Now, again, like you were mentioning, the injury there, it wouldn't surprise me at all if they brought in a UDFA, a free agent, somebody at some point. But again, are they getting a fair chance of winning out? Probably not, because it's Jake, and he was money throughout the playoffs. He was money whenever it mattered.
He really was.
So I am of the same mindset. Dante, for the question of, do we have a kicker problem? I would also say no. I mean, neither of us will lie, though. As we were going into the playoffs, it was like, oh gosh, if it comes down to a Jake Elliott now, there's not near the confidence.
Yeah.
But he proved it. Hey, you know what? Good for him. He absolutely did. There's a difference there. But yeah, I'm still not of the mindset that the Eagles need to seek a backup. It won't hurt anything to bring some guys in, like you said, early in the season. I think that'll be the real, I was going to say real kicker. That's no pun intended, but that'll be, the real element there, because I think that you'll see early it's easier, of course, to bring in another kicker. If he struggles in the first 3-4 weeks, then he might legit be concerning, because, you got plenty of time to make an adjustment or bring another kicker in. But I think because of all the things considered and what he's done, and then being clutch in the biggest moments, not near. I mean, if we were at like a 7, 8 out of 10 concern level, like right as we're going to the playoffs,
right
after what he's done, I mean, what, like a 3 of 10, 4 of 10, if people are a little bit more heightened to that, it doesn't feel near as drastic. So
yeah, no, listen, I totally agree, and mainly due to the fact that he never lost us a game this year. We always kept waiting for that missed go-ahead field goal that really cost Philadelphia something. It never really happened, especially later on in the year. So he missed tons of field goals that should not have happened, but he didn't miss the big one that caused us all to oh my gosh, we're now, out of the playoff race. We lost the NFC title game or whatever it was. And so I think that makes a big difference.
Yeah, the extra points, I mean, all those added up, those definitely had us on the edge of our seat. But thankfully, for example, Jalen Carter saving the game when we said, this is it, we're going to lose. I mean, felt like the Rams were just marching all the way down the field, plenty of time. But, they bailed him out in a sense. It wasn't totally, but, the extra point there, it was very, very close. Tyler with a 10, we appreciate that, says, as far as Myles Garrett, go in on him. Dude has been generational on a trash team. Imagine when an O-line has to worry about Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Nolan Smith, Moro Jomo, Jalix Hunt, and then also Myles Garrett could go for 20-plus sack season potentially, and then asking for thoughts with the generational pass rush right there with him.
Yeah, I mean, he is a generational pass rusher. I know people have said that, maybe the numbers are down a little bit here. Name a Brown who's played alongside Myles Garrett. I literally thought about this the other day. Can I name a Cleveland Brown who has played with, or can I name a Cleveland Brown who's good, who's played with Myles Garrett recently? And I was like, did Zadarius Smith? I think Zadarius Smith was a Brown?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I don't know how well, I mean, for how long in the trade, but yeah.
Can you name another one?
Rodney McLeod, but
No, defensive lineman.
I know.
Right.
But that's what I'm saying is I could name some other guys but to go to that standpoint, it's, I'm sure there's a couple maybe that people, I'm sure will call us out in the chat that we're forgetting, but it usually is. You go into it's Myles Garrett, game plan for Myles Garrett, you're good to go. And he still is a game wrecker. So.
And there's a real scenario where if he plays alongside Jalen Carter, Carter's the one getting doubled, because Carter's the guy coming up the middle, and quarterbacks hate pressure up the gut more than they do around the edge. And so, I mean, the real pitch to Myles Garrett, besides let's go win another Super Bowl, is do you want to be one-on-one with your pick of the lot in terms of a left or a right tackle 80% of snaps, 70% of snaps? That to me is a lot more than the Commanders can offer. And the Commanders have really great defensive linemen, but we're talking about the defensive tackle in the National Football League right now. If you had a chance to play with the Aaron Donald entering his prime as an edge rusher, you would be okay, Dante Fowler got a lot of money in free agency because he got to play alongside, one of the greatest of all time, not the greatest of all time, and they turned to be not that great with the Atlanta Falcons. So that's the pitch. Generational
Yeah,
is definitely fair.
It definitely is, yeah. And to Tyler's point as well, I mean, it's everyone. It certainly helps everyone because if, for example, they're like, okay, well, you know what, now we're gonna double Myles Garrett, then Jalen Carter has your 10, 15 sacks in a season because you're like, okay, good luck. You know, you want to try to block Jalen Carter one-on-one. Jalen Carter has, which is really cool, but people saw this. I can't remember who it was, but I saw the post. But there's been at least one player that says, you know, hey, who do you look up to? Whose game do you model after? And you had a defensive lineman mention Jalen Carter. And at 23 years old, to have prospects in the NFL Combine already calling you out, it's like, okay, you're doing something right. You know, the bread man has made a name for himself for sure. Alex with a 5 also says, I'm more worried about disrupting the nucleus/chemistry than what they have to give up / pay for Myles Garrett. Now, see, that's a great point too, because both sides are fair, but you can make this case, and it depends on the trade. So, Alex, I think I understand where you're coming from, because, you know, people have thrown out these mock trades, and you're trying to get me fired up by tagging me in a post about Nolan Smith being traded, sir. So I don't appreciate that.
Ridiculous.
But some people want to stir that on, you know, and some people legit believe that. I know that you were just joking, but some people legit are like, hey, maybe we do. Maybe we need to trade a first-round pick of Nolan Smith and get Myles Garrett here. The nucleus and chemistry is totally a fair point. Like the Philly Dogs, now the Eagles squad is a squad together. The defense has a lot of chemistry. It's not just the Georgia players. We all know that. But there is an element of, hey, you see that picture. I think everyone's seen the picture. I could probably find it here and put it on the screen in a second. But of the Philly Dogs in the Super Bowl lined up, you got Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, all across that line. And, you know, when Nakobe Dean is healthy, you just have that type of element. So, sure, there is definitely a chemistry factor. To me, I still would say there's some guys I'm not willing to trade. Don't want to trade Nolan Smith. Ultimately, though, it is still priced. I would say it's just the price factor of how much is Howie willing to give up / the cap, because he's still planning on down the road keeping this nucleus, as we say, together. But you're eventually going to have to pay them in 26 or 27. Those big time contracts, we're seeing these players, and you can kind of just project out and say you're either going to lose some of them or you need to start planning on it now. And I think that's kind of where he's headed with it.
No, it's a great point. And they're not trading Nolan Smith. So you do not have to worry at all that they're not trading Nolan Smith. Nolan Smith has the potential to really do something crazy in year 3. And obviously now it's not the time to get rid of him, even for a guy like Myles Garrett. But the big kicker is Nolan Smith is like, what, 22, 23 years old? He's like a kid, right? I mean, I feel like I'm 28. Like, he's way younger than I am. I mean, he's not at his prime. I mean, he felt like he entered his prime the second half of the season when the sacks was like every game he was getting a sack, and he was fantastic in the postseason. But that's not the best version of Nolan Smith we can see. There's a whole nother gear to Nolan Smith entering year 3, because it feels like the light bulb turned on and the success started. Same with Jalen Hunt late in the season. But now it's like light bulb turns on. Now it's the fine tuning of becoming that like elite, feared pass rusher that people really game plan for, instead of this kind of new kid on the block that Nolan Smith and to an extent Jalen Hunt were, especially the latter half of the season.
Yep. I absolutely agree. I was trying to find this, and I did, so I'm going to put it up here just again, because I think most people have probably seen this, but just in case you've not, Georgia football. I knew there was someone that was going to have it, but Georgia football, shout out to them. Of course, you would be promoting yours. I mean, it's pretty legit. If you think about it, the fact that these dudes were playing for a national championship, these dudes were playing on Georgia, dominant D-line, you know, historic defense, all that. But to go from there to the same team in the NFL in the Super Bowl and have that performance, and that is, I'm sure that it either is already or very soon will be like up in the locker room at Georgia, or like, just because there's your guy. There's the 3 of them, 3 guys from Georgia at the Super Bowl. Philly Dogs. Doesn't get much better than that. So,
totally agree.
All right. Oh, Dino, a valuable source. Yeah, just keep trolling with that. It says a valuable source just confirmed Nolan Smith trading trading him to the Cowgirls. It'd be bad enough to do that already, but if we're to trade him there, no, we might just shut this channel down and go into hiding. I don't know. That would be just end everything. My gosh. We are to see him quite a bit, so hopefully we'll I don't know. I'm hoping for like a picture, and I don't know if we'll become like best friends or anything like that, but you know, we're to be the golf tournament and then the ice cream social and maybe the Eagles autism bike ride and fundraiser there, and then who knows, somebody else. But yes, Tyler did say that picture not having Nakobe makes him cry. I know it would have been even better if Nakobe had been healthy for that. Can you imagine 4 of the guys on the field together? That'd have been legit.
I mean, I know we're all worried about Nakobe's health and his time frame coming back. I think you're going to find somebody very, very pumped to get back on the football field and prove once again. I mean, talk about a chip on the shoulder. He's going to have another massive chip on his shoulder. I thought the viral clip on him on the what was it? Whose podcast is it? Chad Johnson, Ocho Cinco's, and Shannon Sharp, where his kneecap is up on his thigh, and I'm like, ooh, it's gross to think about. But I think he's going to have a serious chip on his shoulder to come back and prove that he should still be the number 1 linebacker. I mean, it's maybe not number 1, obviously, with Zack Baun coming back, but still prove that he's going to be as good as he really was until he got hurt late in the season.
Yeah, we got a lot to prove. I hope that he does. I know everyone, but like that gruesome of an injury and the way that it was, the recovery time, you look at the past history of players talking about it, you feel like it might not be for really like 2 seasons from now where he's 100%. He may make a difference, but you just wonder like how much. But I don't think anybody would rule it out based on what we've seen from his resilience, really the entire team, and the trainers have certainly helped those from time to time. I mean, having 11, was it 20? Wasn't it 20? It was 21 of 22, right? 21 of 22 starters for the Super Bowl, I think.
Yes.
Yes. So, I mean, that speaks for itself. But IBH with a 5, appreciate that, says if we add Garrett to Carter, kind of similar. Carter, Ajomo, and Nolan Smith, they'll break the all-time sack record.
Yeah, I mean,
scary.
let's mention. I mean, obviously, he's talking about. I mean, Jalen Carter. We can talk about Abdul Carter's injury today, which I thought was fascinating.
Yeah.
Abdul Carter. It's reported, Josh, that Abdul Carter has some sort of stress. They didn't call it a stress fracture. It's like a stress. I don't fully understand it. Something wrong with his right foot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he had said leading up to the combine, even during the combine yesterday, during his press conference, he's 90% healthy. He's fine. This report drops saying that he needs surgery. They got to put a screw in his foot. It's going to be 8 weeks. And it's like, whoa, okay, that's a big deal. And then about 2 hours later, Schefter then comes with another one saying, they're going to not get to the surgery. He's fine. Doctors are saying this. That to me. And there's always 40 chess, right? Because there's a lot of people, especially in the modern NFL, who don't want to go certain teams, so they're trying to maybe tank their draft stock, move up and down, whatever it is. That, to me, said the initial leak was true. Abdul Carter has this injury and probably should have surgery. Abdul Carter's camp sees it's leaked, and they panic because they don't want him to fall out of number 1, and then they start putting the reverse news up there saying he's not having surgery, he's going to be fine. Will Philadelphia trade for Abdul Carter? I talked about it on my show a couple hours ago. The answer is, as it currently sits, no, because they're not going all the way up to number 1, right? 32-1 is like a 4 first-round pick trade.
Yeah.
But if you did have a scenario where his injury turned out to be worse, then they're saying right now, a month from now, we find out that he's going to miss the first half of the season or miss the season or whatever it is. If he were to fall into the 10 to 15 range, like a 1% chance, just bear with me here, then you could go ahead and move up. But to me, it's very unlikely. But it at least gets the conversation going here that if you don't want to go for a Myles Garrett, if you don't have we want to trade for Harold Landry, there are still probably 5. I think there are 5 edge rushers in round 1 as of right now, and there might be more. And so whether Carter goes 1 or Carter goes 10, that's going to determine how much the rest of the 4 go. And you have a scenario where Philadelphia at 32 can stay put and get a top 5 edge rusher in this draft class, or they could come up a couple, let's say to 26, and still get the edge rusher of their dreams. And so, as we talk about at the beginning of the show today, it's not just Garrett, it's not just Landry, it's not just Josh Sweat. There is a very real case where Philadelphia goes 0 edge rusher over the next month. And then at the end of April, almost 2 months from now, essentially, they get their edge rusher, and it's a first-round draft pick. Maybe not Abdul Carter, but somebody else.
Yeah. There's this feels like it could be, and there's a long ways to go. But even as you're saying, even if they don't get him, we remember the instance of, hey, as soon as these defensive players, like for last year, are not coming off the board, Quinell Mitchell's continuing to fall. You're like, okay, well, at some point you figure he's going to go, and you just stay put and say, all right, hey, Q just fell to us right there. We go ahead and draft him. Same thing for Cooper DeJean. The injury scared some teams away. They're like, I don't know.
Fair.
There's some concern on that side. Now, not to the same extent, of course, for Abdul Carter. Like, he's going to go much earlier. But, it is something worth continuing to monitor. See if he's able to perform at his pro day. And he's for anybody that's watched him, he's going to be a game changer, I'm sure.
Monster. Monster.
I don't think this is the same instance of, because some people are like, oh yeah, hey, but remember Jalen Carter, right? Like the out of shape and not showing up during pro day really well. It's a little harder because of the position that was 10.
Yeah.
That was being at pick 10 and trading up one spot to not. That's more likely. That's a way to make it work versus 32 to.
It's hard to do.
Again, like even if there's an injury and concern, 10 to 15 is extremely unlikely.
Extremely
and
rare.
You got to trade up a crazy amount, but we won't say
it's fun to speculate. It'll be fun to see where he goes. Also, can we just do a quick PSA here, Josh? Because I know you've been dealing with this as well. On your channel. You and I do
go ahead. Yep.
a ton of giveaways, right? We give away all sorts of stuff. And there are scammers who are trying to scam people. This happens on almost all YouTube channels, but especially ours, where people are replying to our comments and saying, you won, text me or send me this, send me that. But you got to look. One, Josh and I, at least I, never reply to comments saying people won. Josh does, but he obviously has the check mark, and you can tell it's officially him. Look at the name of the person you are messaging. If it's not simply Thomas Mott Show, the Philly Special Show, Thomas Mott Show, 5678-000, it's a scam. Report them. It is not us. Both of us announce the winners on our shows. Every single time I announce a winner on my show, it's in the show. You can just go back and look at me saying who won, and then you reach out to me to go ahead and contact it via my email. And so it's a PSA. I know a lot of people don't fall for this stuff. Some people do. I've been getting a bunch of messages saying, did I win? The answer is no, unless you were the one that we announced during our show. So just be vigilant out there. We're trying to do this because we enjoy you guys watching the show. We're trying to give back, and there are always bad actors out there. And so just be careful. Don't give people information.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And, you and I, as much as we appreciate everybody, are probably not going to refer to them as like my bestie. So there's also a lot of things that I think people can tell and determine from that. But occasionally I understand that people fall for it. But as Thomas said, be vigilant. It's pretty blatant, pretty obvious in those instances. Thankfully, we appreciate, people that, hey, heads up, you got a scammer and all that. It's irritating every single time. But we're doing everything we can to monitor, to negate, to remind, but also even in the videos, let you know how it works for the giveaways on that side. So it's probably not going to ever end, but hopefully it's just more like, all right, that's what it is. And I see some people in the comments are saying, yeah, it's obvious, we understand, we can see that, but some people fall for it.
It's not obvious for everybody, right? That is the sad part there. So just PSA. We're trying to give as many PSAs as possible.
There we go. Yes. Also, Eric asking, maybe we might as well, since we were talking about that, trying to get the Zack Baun signed helmet. That is true. So Thomas is on his way. If you want to help make it happen quicker, just go sub to Thomas's channel. Going to give away the signed Zack Baun helmet. Pretty legit. Hopefully, people have been saying this. I can't confirm or deny, but the quicker that helmet gets given away, the quicker that the Eagles sign Zack Baun. So,
good point.
Who knows for sure, but we could just.
And I'll say this: if Zack Baun, if we've not reached 90, because I'm giving away at 9,000 subs, if I've not hit 90 by the time Zack Baun signs somewhere, if he signs elsewhere, I could switch to a different player's sign thing. So
there you go. That's fair.
Just let that be known. I don't want someone to get a Zack Baun helmet and Zack Baun signs and go somewhere else if we're not at 90 there yet.
Yeah,
so that and a whole lot more stuff going on as well. But yes, getting close.
There we go. Wendell with a 10. Appreciate the 10, the support there. I'm going to totally disagree with this comment here. It says, if you are not trading Nolan and a first-round pick for Myles Garrett, I question your football knowledge, and I love and appreciate all Nolan has done. All right, Wendell. Okay. You're entitled to your
Wendell,
opinion.
you're in his bad. You're on Josh's bad side now. Just let that be known.
Again, I appreciate the comment, appreciate the support, but if you're telling me you're questioning football knowledge for a first and Myles Garrett, then come on, man. We're not even talking about this straight up, but we're talking about the salary cap ramifications, the ability to play on this team in Vic Fangio's scheme, which we've clearly seen that he can do. So no, there is, and I know that lots of other people have already weighed in on this take and this comment. I appreciate everyone having a thought, opinion.
Yeah.
This is a very much agree to disagree respectfully. No, there in no world am I trading Nolan Smith and a first for Myles Garrett, because Nolan Smith, sure, where he was drafted was a late first round pick, but the way he's played now, the way he's shown that he can live up to the expectations and that athleticism, is better than his where he was drafted. And then you add on the fact that he's got the rookie contract. So there's a whole lot of extra value there for teams that are going in saying it's not just a straight up like, hey, Nolan Smith is the value of late first round pick. Nolan Smith would be the equivalent of if you wanted a Nolan Smith today, you would have to give up a very early first round pick or at least a middle first round. You're not going to get him where he was drafted. So
yeah,
Wendell, I appreciate it again. No way.
Well, and you mentioned the contract. I just pulled it up here. Nolan Smith. This is Nolan Smith's base salary, right? This is a rookie deal. So essentially, what he's going to make for 2025, $1.8 million, 2026, $2.3 million, and they have a fifth-year option in 2027 because he was a first-round draft pick. Nolan Smith, and that's the thing about the Eagles and why I really think that 2025 can be very similar to what we saw, if not better than 2024. All these guys are on cheap deals. Jalen Hunt's going to cost you nothing for the next 4 years, right? I mean, literally the next 3 years because he doesn't have a fifth-year option. Nolan Smith, the next 3 years, costs you nothing. Jalen Carter, for the next 3 years, I know they will sign him early, but still, the next 2 years, he's costing you pennies on the dollar. And just keep going. Cooper DeJean, all of these guys are on unbelievably cheap contracts right now. And it's a massive heads up and shout out to Howie Roseman for nailing the draft. I mean, this is what happens. And if he nails 2 picks in the 2025 draft, Josh, just 2, right? I don't, off the top of my head, know how many picks they have this year. 2 of those picks hit. That's all it takes. I mean, come on. It's going to keep on rolling. It just keeps snowballing because then you just add 2 more really good players on 4 or 5 year contracts that are going to be here for the long run. So it's an exciting time. It's definitely an exciting time to be a Philadelphia Eagle fan. And I know I haven't gotten full draft yet, Josh. Like, every time around this year, you start to get the names because we already have the big names, the Cam Wards, and the Travis Hunters, the Abdul Carters. We've been hearing these names for a while. But as someone who covers the NFL like you and I do, we're focused on the NFL only and way less on the draft. Now that the draft is within, earshot, you start to get the other names rolling around. And you can start to kind of be like, okay, this is where Philadelphia could go. You go with that at 32. You could trade back and go ahead and grab this guy. They're going to find, I think, an edge rusher, depending on what they do with Myles Garrett. I think an offensive lineman, because they always do. And there's going to be another position that's going to surprise us somewhere. And I don't know what it's going to be. Running back, potentially, because you're probably losing Kenny Gainwell. Maybe that could be an option. There's going to be a surprise one out there where you're like, oh, okay, let's give it a try. And then, boom, corner, for instance, another name that, or another position that could be a surprise because you don't think we need a cornerback. They get one in the 3rd round, and then we see what that turns out to be. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, and question of tight end. Do the Eagles go for
Definitely
a tight end potential? Yeah, how early too? I'm curious on Dallas Goedert. What's the decision there? Do they get a specific type of tight end? Like I've seen a lot of people that have messaged me about this, and looking at like Harold Fannin and. It's like a little smaller, but the receiving ability is insane. But then you think about this offense. Do you really need that type of a receiving option, or do you need someone who's a little bit better blocking, can be serviceable as a pass kit? It's so many options. And, even diving into a couple mock drafts early, this one feels I'm not going to say better or more exciting or anything because thinking about last year, we're like, oh, the possibility of Q or Coop and then, then both of them and all this other stuff. But there's a lot of different avenues the Eagles can go at 32. It's going to be a forever wait. I know that. They may trade up, or you could get a very likely trade back scenario where we're streaming, the entire draft night, like we said, and then it's like, oh, okay, hey, we'll see you guys tomorrow night. We didn't take anybody, but there's just so many options where I don't think it's as obvious. As we started getting closer, we'll probably get more of an inclination. But last year felt more of like, okay, you need to solidify the secondary. Howie started talking about it early, the youth that they had. This one is you kind of wait and see where it plays or how it shakes out. And like, okay, if edge rushers are falling, then hey, maybe you take one there. If it's offensive lineman you didn't expect to be available, you might go ahead and grab one there on that side. But we'll see. I think the one guarantee that pretty much everybody can confirm, and just knowing Howie, is he always goes into the draft as best he can, but usually solidified, goes into the draft not needing a need. It's all once. Like, you have the needs covered, you're good to go, so you don't have to draft off of what you need there, and then it's just, okay, hey, best position available, what do we see long-term, and then go ahead and do that, and that's similarly where I think he'll be in, again, for like the 32nd pick, but tight end could be interesting.
Yeah, can be fascinating. And we're obviously going to be live for at least the first 2 rounds of the NFL draft. Probably tons of content going down that weekend. And we had a pretty big draft show for both rounds. But round 1 was awesome, and we're planning on making it even better, because there are a lot of draft shows on YouTube. And I think there's a way to do it to where if you are not watching the NFL draft on ESPN and you're watching ours, it's almost as good, as close as it possibly can be. And you get the picks even sooner than most people do. So that's kind of our excited next phase. Josh and I are working on that. We still have basically a month. I mean, it's a little less than a month, or sorry, a little less than 2 months, but we have, plans in place.
Yes. And last time, for those that did watch, we kind of broke the streaming software. I don't think that it'll happen this time. I believe we can get it to work, but last time we had some technical difficulties. But yeah, it should be, certainly night one, but even the first couple, some highlights of players, keep people posted on who certain individuals are, the pros, the cons, all the other stuff. So yeah, I'm very, very much looking forward to that. Let's see. We should mention here briefly, because I saw a couple comments on it earlier, and we touched on it early as well, but and this has been covered in both of our shows. But you're going to see a brief picture. You can't see the whole thing. But the Inquirer, shout out to Jeff McClain. I'll read the full title of the article because you can't see it all. But re-signing Zack Baun is an Eagles priority ahead of free agency. We talked about it for a couple days as well, but it's the next move that you feel like is potentially going to happen, because you talk about ahead of free agency. We're literally sitting here at a week, or a week and a half from free agency. Yeah. So if that's top priority, we will certainly be going live. We mentioned that to a lot of you guys. As soon as it happens, the breaking news, if it's in a day, if it's in a week, whenever it happens for Zack Baun, we will be going live. And it leads you to believe, assuming that is their priority to do ahead of free agency, that next week, because during the combine it's not impossible, but you're probably a little bit in focus on, okay, who we're getting, draft visits, all that. But next week, then you start to set up of, okay, let's get our ducks in a row before we head into free agency. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week, we all of a sudden say, there you go, there it is, Zack Baun taken care of, we're good to go.
We've been saying it for weeks now that you and I have been told. And again, I was on a podcast last night when one of the Eagle guys an Eagle podcast had me on and asked me the same question. And I prefaced by saying, Josh and I don't break news. We're not that. There are plenty of people on Twitter that try and break news, even though they take news from other people or they repurpose it.
Sure.
We don't break news. We've been told by people that say that they are in the know, and who knows if they're true or not, that Zack Baun will be re-signed with Philadelphia, that he feels like he owes it to Vic Fangio. He loves the city. He completely changed his life by being one of the best linebackers in football, winning a Super Bowl. So we expect it to happen. If it doesn't happen, Josh and I are going to be very surprised. I would be, if I was an Eagle fan watching this right now, I'd feel very confident that Zack Baun is going to get re-signed. The question is going to be the money and how he works the contract. And I think it's going to be shorter year-wise, Josh, than a lot of people would expect. I think 4 years is what Baun would like. My guess is probably around 2 to 3, 3 being kind of the sweet spot there. Mm-hmm. Big signing bonus up front, push things back a couple of years, and hope that it continues. Because as we've said, for as great as Zack Baun's year was, you really needed one more year to get that full bag, right? I mean, one more season of all pro caliber play, he would have been the highest paid linebacker in the National Football League. But because it's 1 year, and now he's got to get his bag, and more power to him. I'd be doing the exact same thing. I think it'll be a little bit more team-friendly than a lot of the national pundits are saying right now, and that bodes obviously very well for Philadelphia. So I'm with you. Sometime next week makes a ton of sense. Don't let him get to free agency, because then the Raiders make a phone call and they offer him $5 million a year more. That's a big chunk. Insert your team that has a lot of free cap space, like the Panthers or the Patriots. They could offer way more. And if you lock him up before free agency starts, then they have no chance. So that would be my suggestion. But takes two to tango. Zack Baun and his agents have to be agreeing on a deal instead of Howie Roseman simply being the only one to try to get it done.
Exactly. Yes. But I agree with you in similar sources of that sense. And for those people, I was just trying to find, I know there's millions of tweets out there, but to get the official numbers from last free agency period, I'm feeling like it's going to be, if I'm just guessing, speculate, whatever, I'm feeling like it's probably $45 million, somewhere around there, but $45 million for 3 years, so $15 million a year. Same thing as you said, front load, pay him the signing bonus, or sorry, back load, but pay the signing bonus, cap hit goes down for Zack Baun, and even probably a voided couple of years, so the third year you can kind of easily get out, the restructuring there. But the numbers that I was pulling up to try to find officially was, and this was one of my favorite tweets from last year, but shout out to Bill Colorado for getting these numbers together. So Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Saquon Barkley had cap hits of 36.2, Dak Prescott's cap hit $59.4 million. So, that's the way that you do business right there. Knowing the cap is going to increase, which is officially $22 million. For those that were wondering, it was a range last week, but officially $22 million increase. I mean, Saquon Barkley had the 3 years for what? 3 years, $38 million, and has a $3.9 million cap hit. So if it's 3 for 45 or Zack Baun, you're probably only looking at a $4.5 million cap hit. There's so much room to get that done and still sign some other people. So there's no worries, and there really never should be for financial ramifications for the Eagles and Howie Roseman. But again, just a reason why he's so good at what he does. Yes, it gets bigger for Jalen Hurts' contract for A.J. Brown later on down the road because they pushed it back. But it's also the instance of you keep doing the extensions, the salary cap keeps increasing. So therefore, the numbers aren't always equal to each other, so to speak. But I agree. I think it's in that 3-year range, sticking with a 15 anyway.
Yeah, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. I feel very confident. I wouldn't be shocked if they get him and Becton done and then they bring back one of the smaller, quote unquote, smaller guys. I think if Baun comes back, well, maybe Burks thinks he can take the job from Nakobe Dean. And so Oren Burks comes back on kind of a 1-year prove-it deal, wins the job, and then gets his big payday in 2026 free agency. Maybe the same or different goes for Isaiah Rodgers. Those are the other two that I'm really curious about, Josh, because we know Josh Sweat is gone. We know Milton Williams is most likely gone. I mean, geez, you just saw the Cowboys are, $21 million today for their guy, or is the expected range? So
yeah,
it's going to be huge, right? I mean, Milton Williams is getting 21 plus a year, which is a lot. And so I'm fascinated by Oren Burks and Isaiah Rodgers because those are two very important guys down the stretch for us this past season. We don't win a Super Bowl without both of them contributing in their own ways, especially Oren Burks. We have to start the Super Bowl. I want both back. I think you probably get one. I don't know which one, though.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough, honestly, because you're picking favorites. It feels like you're picking favorites. You're seeing what their deal, but all the conversations and deals with agents, what they're potentially getting offered from other teams, certainly plays into that. But that's the beauty, the fun, I suppose, the madness of free agency, because you start getting the rumors, and there's the legal tampering on March 10th, and then officially goes into play on the 12th. It's exciting. I'm looking forward to it. I should mention really quickly, because you talked about Isaiah Rodgers. For people that are in Tampa, you don't necessarily have to be, but he's going to have a celebrity basketball game put on. So he's running that. Heads up, he has not announced officially the dates and everything like that, but we'll see. I don't know if we're getting invited or anything. All I know is that he's going to be doing it. So I'm just putting that out there, and we should have more info. So,
geez, I got to work on my golf game. I got to work on my baskkill game. I will say this: if Isaiah Rodgers is watching, you want Josh Davis to be there. Isaiah has met Josh in person, but Josh is like 6'3", and at Baylor, you used to watch those intramural basketball games running up and down the Student Life Center, the old slick at Baylor, and Josh is pretty good. You want to talk about a celebrity basketball game? Now, myself, at 5'9", it's more of a Nate Robinson situation without the dunk. But if you wanted me to play as well, I did play varsity basketball as a 6-man. But
there you go.
I'm just saying, I would definitely want Josh there. Me, hit or miss. But obviously, we're already locked in for Nolan Smith's golf tournament, which I've been working like crazy to prove my golf game. So
there we go.
We got a lot of fun happening the next couple of weeks.
Yes.
I mean, the Nolan Smith tournament is like almost basically a month from today.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for Josh to book his flights to come stay with me because I live close to Savannah. So
I need to,
a lot of things
get
happening.
on that.
A lot of things happening.
I'm delayed. Been parenting and busy this last couple of weeks. Or really, last week. But yes, we will do that. I wasn't actually, the reason that I brought that wasn't to say to play in the game, because I'll admit,
play in it though.
I have not picked up a basketball. I mean, occasionally shoot around. I haven't picked up basketball in probably 4 years.
Run the floor. That's all we need.
It's been all golf. But I'm good for a foul or two. I get some rebounds. Sure. Zay, if you need anybody, let me know. I'm sure he's got
height,
6'8", 6'10" guys that are there. So maybe not, but either way, for anyone wanting to go, though, we will share details, info, how you can support. I'm sure it's going to be a good gathering for fans and everything like that. Let's see, Tyler. Oh, I saw this one earlier. I didn't mention it, but appreciate the 5. Chiefs guard Trey Smith getting franchise tagged. How do you guys think this plays in getting McKai Becton back?
Yeah, so $24 million, right, is the franchise tag, and our old buddy at How About Those Chiefs, Cole, mentioned that the expectation is they're going to tag him and then restructure the deal and give him a long-term thing. The tag, gives them more time. Becton's not worth top guard in the league money, Josh. I think we all can agree on that. Landon Dickerson's at what, 21 a year, I think is kind of his number right now. I could be wrong on that one. I think it's got to be less than Landon Dickerson as well, simply because, again, like Baun, it's a one-year sort of thing. He's getting north of 15, right? I mean, it's 15 to 20 is your kind of top 10 guard money in the National Football League, and I would assume that that's where it's going to go, right? I'm pretty sure I have my numbers correct.
Yes, you're right. So it's $21 million for Landon Dickerson.
Right.
I've kind of gone back and forth because that's what I initially thought. And then shout out to John McMullen, does some great work covering the Eagles and Jacob Sports and SI.com. But he was saying that he feels like Becton is the most likely, not that Baun isn't, but the most likely to return out of the core four, and might give you a Philly discount, which I don't think that's a huge surprise. We've talked about all the reasons for Stoutland, how it feels to him to be here, being believed in, all the other stuff. But he did bring up the point of his lingering knee issue as a potential concern for teams out there of, saying like you've played through a little bit and had something through a couple games, but I don't know, it could be cheaper. I don't know what number necessarily, but you talk about that injury, if that's something that makes teams go, maybe I don't know, or it's just 1 year, similar to Zack Baun, who played the 1 year with linebacker, great, but he's only played 1 year as a guard for McKai Becton. So I don't know, maybe not quite as expensive for a Becton return.
Well, and I will say this, as you look at right guard, let's say right guard contracts in the National Football League right now, the top is 20.5 with Chris Lindstrom. Obviously, Dickerson's a left guard. That does make technically a difference because it's the blind side or left side, even though it's not a tackle. But when you go through the list of right guards, looking at it right now, it's 20.5 for Chris Lindstrom. He's the highest paid. Robert Hunt is 20. Sam Cosmi, the Commanders, is 18.5. Those are your top three. And then you're looking at Wyatt Teller is like the 6th, 7th highest paid guard with the Cleveland Browns. He makes $14.2. So it might be cheaper than $15 million a year, and even get to kind of the Shaq Mason Texans number of 11.6, which is, to me, a very fair deal. A 3-year, $11.5 million a year contract for McKai Becton, not bad. Even cheaper, 9.5, maybe you get to 10.2, something like that. It's again, I don't think it's going to be outrageous. And for as great as all these people who are free agents have been, Josh, Howie has a lot of ammo in his back pocket to re-sign them because they just won a Super Bowl and he's built the roster that they would want to be a part of, right? If you're McKai Becton and the Browns are going to offer you, not the Browns don't have the money, the Panthers are going to offer you $16 million a year to be their right guard, okay, well, I could come back to Philadelphia for 12, and so it's a $4 million a year hit, but am I going to be playing in NFC Championship games? Am I going to be winning 12 games a year? Am I going to be improving under Jeff Stoutland over the course of that time? All true, and all a major factor in these guys coming back. And I think the same goes for Zack Baun, right? Again, I keep using the Panthers. They have a lot of cap space. The Patriots have a lot of cap space. Patriots can pay Zack Baun the most money. Okay, great. But does that work for your goals as somebody who very clearly wants to be a part of a winning franchise going forward? Do you just want to collect a bag? And I don't see any of these guys being that sort of player. And I think Zack Baun understands he can get better, right? Zack Baun can get better than what he was this past year.
Yeah.
And if he stays under Vic Fangio, he has his best chance to go ahead and do that. So why not take $2 million less, stay in Philadelphia, and go win another ring? That's my argument. But let me just say this, Josh, a long-winded answer. You and I are not having to deal with whether we make or lose $2 million or $3 million. We forget the factor in all this, that they're all human. Yeah. And if you and I were offered an additional $3 million to do something, that's a lot of money. I mean, even for a guy who made $2 million last year like Zack Baun did, it's a factor that we forget about, and it's worth noting.
Yes, and we won't knock them. I think we're both in the same set. We won't knock them if they decide to go get a bag.
Your bag.
If they do that, that is perfectly fine. Understand it. Support your family. You got a Super Bowl. You know, even if you never win again, you can always say you're a Super Bowl champ and you got the bag. Totally makes sense. But, you know, if you want to stick around and be with Fangio and the system there, I could totally get that. It seems incredibly likely for all the reasons that we mentioned. I mean, Zack Baun had the Wisconsin, some sort of gathering, get-together. I forgot exactly what it was, but he did the Eagles chant whenever he was walking off the stage there, too. So it's like, you know, he feels, I think that he feels like he's very much a part of Philly, as he should. He is. But it's just leaning towards probably like, hey, you know what, agent, see what's out there, see what the market is, get the most that we possibly can. But like Philly is really where I want to be. So you just dictate where those numbers come in and get the deal done.
There you go.
Christopher with a 2. We appreciate that. We're getting close to wrapping here. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. We're getting a couple of these super chats. With a 2 says, oh, Dallas sucks. We agree with you there. But then why are we going to play this game? Keep, cut, trade. Nolan, Coop, Q.
Woo! I don't want to play that game. Keep, cut, trade.
Why do we have to play this game?
Keep, cut, trade. Nolan, Coop.
Okay, so I'll go first.
Gosh.
I mean, because I'm going to say...
You're keeping Nolan Smith, huh?
I'm gonna keep Nolan. But my gosh, keep, cut, trade. What? Keep, cut, trade.
I'm not playing that game. I don't want to play that game.
He sent
You
a
can make
super
an
chat.
argument for all
You have
three.
to. You have to play the game. He sent a super chat. You got to play it. This is not what we would do. We're gonna put a disclaimer out there. We'd never do this. So, but
yeah, someone's gonna clip this. It's like Thomas Mott said, "Cut Cooper DeJean." You know, it's like, dang it.
I'm keeping the super chat on the screen. We're being held hostage here.
Here, how about this? If obviously because they're Eagles, right? So it's not just like for my own personal team.
Fair.
I would keep Cooper DeJean because I think Cooper DeJean is irreplaceable on the Eagle defense right now. I think he makes a massive difference. I would trade Nolan Smith and cut Quinyon Mitchell if I had to do that. And the only reason is you have Keely Ringo. Maybe you re-sign Isaiah Rodgers. Like you could survive at cornerback, right? And you could get a lot for Nolan Smith, as we talked about earlier on. But I think that Cooper is a very unique, very hard to find type player who's going to be very good for many years. I think I cracked the code. I think if you had to do it, that's how you would do it. I know you don't want to say you would trade Nolan Smith, but I think if you think about it, edge rushers versus like the slot corner who he's the guy right now in the National Football League, and that's just year one. I think that's what I would do.
Yeah.
Because
you're not. No, you're. Yeah, I know. You're not wrong.
Chance to redraft.
If I'm thinking about it smartly as a general manager, yes, I'm trading Nolan because the value there. Yeah, and keeping Coop.
Right there,
I agree with you. Also, somebody's gonna do that. I would never in a million years. This is not a game we're playing, Christopher.
Yeah.
Good gosh, Dallas sucks, and so does that question.
Yes.
All right, Dylan with the 5 says, I know people might jump me for this. Oh, here's another hot take, apparently. But I could see Howie trading, trading A.J. Brown sometime before his contract is up while his value is high.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. But then what's your plan?
Cut, trade. Let's keep this game going now.
Yeah.
AJ.
I am good on that. AJ needs to be an Eagle for life. I fully stand behind that. AJ Brown needs to be an Eagle for life, and he's really proved that. For all that he's gone through, he's the most, besides Jalen Hurts, because Jalen Hurts is the quarterback, besides Jalen Hurts, he's the most attacked Eagle of the past couple of years. People go at A.J. Brown if he breathes wrong. It's crazy how ridiculous it is, and he's the best receiver in the National Football League right now. I would take him over every other receiver in the entire league. Justin Jefferson is a real argument, but, talk about winning football games, I would definitely take A.J. Brown. So I would not. I think you make him an Eagle for life, and I think they're going to do that. And he's signed for the next, till 2029 is whenever his cap hit gets massive, so we don't really have to worry about it. And they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it.
No, I agree that they won't either. There's an element of like trades, and you think about some trades that Howie has made for players and acquisitions and all the other stuff there, but there's also like there's multiple layers to why players want to come play for Philly. And there's not as much of, I think, at least in my opinion, I don't know if backstabbing is too harsh, but you're appreciated. Howie Roseman's going to get you. You're appreciated. We're going to pay you. We're going to get the contract structure. We're not going to wait.
Yeah.
We're not going to franchise tag you. We're not going to. You're going to know where you stand with us. And if we have future, we're going to get things done before you reach the max. And it's the same thing for trading. Like AJ is a key cornerstone of this offense, of this future, and everything. So. Yeah, Dylan, you're going to get jumped for this probably. Thankfully, you don't have your picture on this profile, but there's no way in my mind that he would trade A.J. Brown before the contract is up. Howie's playing chess to the extreme. He doesn't have to. Like, if you're Dallas or you're another team that doesn't know how to manage the cap, you probably should look into doing that because you're going to not maximize the value. You're going to, oh, shoot, we've got 1 year left. We got 2 years left on A.J.'s contract. Well, we might as well trade it now because we're not going to get anything. Howie's thinking so far down the road, that's not even an issue. You don't go, oh, we've got a good player coming up on a contract. How many guys have gotten extra deals done, stayed here longer because Howie knows how to restructure things and get things done, whether it's extensions, signing bonuses, whatever. I understand if you're going to look at it just from, oh, well, hey, there's value. Sure, there's value. There's value in tons of players. There's no way. No way AJ's getting traded. We'll say that.
Yeah.
Green Wingman with a 5 as we, I think, wrap up here. Maybe ended on this one. So people are saying, yeah, we don't have to do this. Anthony, actually, by the way, real quick before I get to Green, says, give a better chance of Josh trading his own dog before trading Nolan Smith. That is accurate, by the way. That is very true.
Josh would trade.
Love my dog still,
Dink
but I
or
would
Dink or Dunk. Or,
Dunk,
right?
Dunk or Donut. Dunk or Donut,
Dunk or
yes.
Donut, that's right. Yeah,
I would
he
absolutely
trade either before Nolan Smith.
My wife
both,
would not,
honestly.
but
Let's be real, though.
I would, absolutely, yes. But my wife, I don't think, is watching right now.
you
Green
go.
Wingman with a 5 says, in all respect to Baun, it's not guaranteed that he can replicate his performance for another team.
Very true.
That's where
Very
you're
true.
weighing it, honestly. I mean, that's
Sure.
the how much could he potentially make, or will he get offered from another team? You know, you gotta. It's all a guess for other teams. I mean, it's kind of a find the happy medium for everyone, but certainly for other teams, because they got to look at it and say, well, we weren't playing with him. We didn't have him in the building. We saw what he can do, but it's in Fangio's scheme and system and all the other players. So, yeah, that who knows where it is. Hopefully that helps the Eagles in that sense, but we'll see. We're getting close.
There you go.
All right. Well, we appreciate you guys. We'll wrap on this other question here because it is a good reminder. Still, Grandpa says, when are you guys doing the NovaCare trip? We are waiting. We are going to be doing the giveaways for subscribers. We're waiting to get official details from the Eagles. So they've not confirmed what the date will be. But we'll be hanging out with Thomas and I and at least 3 or 4 potentially. I have to confirm the official numbers, but multiple subscribers. So we'll share the dates and details when they give us. They have not yet. All we've been told in the offseason, sometime in the spring. I mean, daylight savings is like a week away. So at some point they're going to confirm with us, but it is verified. It will happen. And we'll keep everybody posted as soon as it does.
Yeah, I'm guessing April would be what would make the most sense because all the guys need to be there. All the Philly dogs got to be there as well. So, but we don't know. They haven't told us yet. So when we know, you guys will know, and then we'll actually pick the winners. That way, you guys have time to, if you don't live in Philadelphia, get your tickets and stuff like that to fly out. So it's coming.
There we go. Stay tuned. All right, everybody. We appreciate it as always. Drop a like on your way out. Make sure to sub, and we'll see you next time. Go Birds.
Go Birds.